Number 10. Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer gains the power of the Infinity Gauntlet in a what-if story from the 1989 series featured in issue 49 of that series. What if Silver Surfer possessed the Infinity Gauntlet? Well, he would obviously try to use the power for good. He ends up being lifted up into godhood because he wields such awesome power and attempts to turn the universe into a paradise, eradicating hunger and disease for all races across the cosmos. Also, fun fact, did you know that back in the day when you had the Infinity Gauntlet you were considered a god and that was like part of the story? That was the thing. Silver Surfer also makes Death a more approachable hot lady, so that when people die they will not fear her but cherish her instead. I mean, I personally think Death was already hot before, but I guess now she's more hot, so that's great. In the end, unfortunately, even Silver Surfer becomes corrupted by the Gauntlet's power. However, our heroes have a solution for that and introduce Shala Bal, Norrin Radd's lost love, into the mix. She manages to be able to level with Norrin and even convinces him to renounce the power, saving the world with his final sacrifice. And her final sacrifice too, because they're both like, okay, well, we're just gonna die now, bye. Number 9. Nebula. Nebula is a complicated character. She's not really a full-on villain and she's not really a full-on hero, but I feel like her portrayal by Karen Gillan in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy series has helped us to see her more as a villain worth redeeming and moving more into the realm of hero than anything else. And in honor of that, I'm going to count her as such for the purpose of this list. One of the last times I was reading a sort of hero Nebula story was when she teamed up with Thane, Star Fox or Eros if you will, and Trico Slatteris, the champion of the universe, to seemingly defeat Thanos. In reality, Thane was using them for his own means, and when Nebula found this out, she attempted to defeat Thane herself. In the comics, she was one of the characters to get her hands on the Infinity Gauntlet during the events of the Infinity Gauntlet story. She ended up being the really big bad when she took the gauntlet from Thanos and then had to be defeated thereafter. At that time, Nebula was pretty much a villain, so yeah. But like I said, we can kind of consider her a hero, so she was a villain at the time, but she's still a hero. Does that make sense? I'm counting it, whatever. It's my list. I decide who stays. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like this where we talk about who's wielding the Infinity Gauntlet and what they did with it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I personally would love to see like an alternate Thanos Infinity Gauntlet list as well. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if we have enough alternate Thanoses for that list, but I think it would be cool if we could do it. Number 8. Deadpool. Surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly if you're familiar with the character, Deadpool also has wielded the Infinity Gauntlet before. In this case, he ended up getting it from Thanos when he pulled a bait and switch, swapping out the real gauntlet with a fake. Deadpool then planned to use the gauntlet to roast the Marvel Universe, but instead got celebrity roasted himself by host Howard the Duck and a slew of other heroes, villains, friends, allies, and even lovers. In the end, however, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall to do some roasting of the audience and ultimately returns the gauntlet to its rightful owner. Thanos, of course. What did you think? He was gonna give it to someone else and save the day? This is still Deadpool we're talking about. Also, I'm pretty sure the issue this story comes from, issue 45 of Jerry Dugan's Deadpool run from 2013, is also where the Thanos copter originated. Either way, if you're a fan of Thanos copter, it is in there too. Thanos copter. Thanos is flying around in it. Number 7. Gamora. Gamora ended up using the Infinity Gem's combined power to fold the universe in half, creating Warp World in the comics. Warp World contained only combined Marvel characters who were all composed of two different souls, like Emma Frost and Wolverine, who were combined together to create Diamond Patch, or Weapon Hex, a combination of Laura Kinney aka X-23 and Scarlet Witch. Technically, Gamora didn't use a gauntlet specifically to do this, but she did utilize the power of all the gems, which makes it, I think, close enough for her to rank here. At the time, what she was doing was, well, pretty villainous. But Gamora in general is considered to be a hero, in modern comics especially. Well, when she's not stealing gems and folding the universe in half, of course, which is also from modern comics. To check out this story, you'd want to check out Infinity Wars, so go do that, because Warp World is cool. Number 6. Black Panther. T'Challa was the one to use the Infinity Gauntlet against God Emperor Doom on his own created version of Battleworld. Doom's created version of Battleworld, not T'Challa's, just to be clear. This reality was a patchwork one created by Doom after the inevitable destruction of the Incursions. Doom faced T'Challa and Namor, the former of which also came wielding the Infinity Gauntlet. While initially T'Challa succeeded in defeating Doom, he inevitably regenerated and then destroyed the Infinity Gauntlet in turn. However, while Doom beat Black Panther even with the Infinity Gauntlet, it was then revealed that this had all been a part of a master plan and was intended only to distract Doom, which evidently had pretty much worked. God Emperor Doom was so OP though. RIP God Emperor Doom. Doom's still around though, so I wonder if he remembers that. No, he probably doesn't remember that. I think it all got wiped. He just remembered that he killed his arch nemesis, and he was like, I'm happy now. Also, I'm not scarred. Number 5, Mr. Fantastic. Reed Richards aimed to wield the Infinity Gauntlet, collecting the gems and assembling them all with the intention to destroy them and prevent anyone else from gaining their dangerous level of power. He used his own group of banded together heroes to find the gems and collect them. Unfortunately, his plan did not work, and he had the secret superhero Brainiac group, the Illuminati, instead become the protectors of the gems, which were then split up. Each one of them was given one to hide in the universe so that the gauntlet could never be reassembled and used against them. Of course, this didn't end up being a permanent solution to that problem, because these are the Infinity Gems, and no matter which way you slice it or split these gems up, they're eventually going to be used again by someone in the future to do some kind of good or ill. Usually though, they're used for ill. So yeah. And no matter how hard you try to hide those Infinity Gems, people go and find them. Number 4, Hulk. Obviously one of the heroes we can't leave out, considering how mighty he is and how important his time with the Gauntlet was in the MCU, is the Hulk. The Hulk wore the Infinity Gauntlet and was the one to use it to bring everyone back in the MCU. If you were wondering how a big, not super intelligent berserker like the Hulk managed this feat, managed to stay focused, this was actually during the time in the MCU where Hulk was more in balance with Bruce Banner. The two beings were more merged at this point and basically became Professor Hulk. Hulk wore the Gauntlet in the MCU during Avengers Endgame and used it to bring back everyone that had been snapped out of existence, undoing what Thanos had done in the previous film, Avengers Infinity War. In the comics, in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, the alternate Hulk of that Earth also wielded the Infinity Gauntlet, or rather the Infinity Gauntlets, as in that universe there's 2 of them, but that's a story for another list. Number 3, Iron Man. Someone that has been immortalized when it comes to his use of the Infinity Gauntlet, or Iron Gauntlet if you rather, in the MCU is Iron Man. Iron Man snapped past Thanos and his army out of existence, which resulted in the heroes winning the day in Avengers Endgame. Thanos returned to try and set straight what the heroes were trying to fix in their universe, which was his plan to eliminate half the population. Hulk had successfully snapped back those who had been killed off by Thanos' initial snap, but now Tony Stark was fighting to save the world against a past Thanos who had followed them there to once again follow through with his future self's and really his own self's plan. In using the gauntlet, however, Tony gave up his life as it was so powerful a weapon that using it killed him. Also, he kind of had to put it in his suit, and I don't know if his suit was properly wired for all that power. This made Iron Man one of the greatest heroes eternally, but not one of the greatest Eternals, because that's a whole different group of heroes. Tony has also briefly wielded the Infinity Gauntlet in the comics, but it went quite a bit differently for him in comparison. Once again, a story for another list. Number 2, Captain America. Captain America actually also wore the gauntlet, in the comics at least. He attempted to use the gauntlet to keep Earth 616 safe during the incursions. This was a dangerous time in the comics when basically different realities were colliding and thereby destroying one another. Captain America attempted to use the power of the Infinity Gauntlet to push away the impending Earth and help prevent their collision. However, he failed in his attempt, and instead all of the stones on the gauntlet were seemingly destroyed except for the Time Stone. Probably one of the most useful stones too when you think about it in terms of getting the other Infinity Gems back at some point. I feel like there's gonna be someone that's gonna be like, you're calling them gems and stones. What is it, Amanda? Look, they're stones I'm pretty sure in the movies, they're gems in the comics. Gems, stones, it's all the same thing. They're rocks. They're Infinity Rocks, that's what we should call them. Number 1, Adam Warlock. Probably one of the most famous people to wield the gauntlet when it comes to comic book heroes from Marvel is Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock is often seen as a sometimes ally, sometimes opponent to Thanos, and in this case, he was kind of both. He ended up initially joining the heroes during the events of the Infinity Gauntlet in an attempt to defeat Thanos in the comics. However, they failed. When Nebula, who was known only as Thanos' granddaughter at that time, usurped Thanos, taking the power for herself, Thanos and Adam Warlock decided to team up to put a stop to her. This is when Adam Warlock got his hand on the gauntlet. However, after ascending and becoming a god thanks to the gauntlet's power, as I said that used to be a thing, he was instructed by the Living Tribunal and convinced to basically disassemble the gauntlet, hiding the gems with those that he trusted to protect them, one of which remaining with him, the Soul Stone. And I'm pretty sure Adam just held on to that and was like, now I have the power of the Soul Stone. As if he wasn't powerful enough already. Jeez, Adam, you're already so powerful.
Coming in at number 10, we have Nebula, the adopted daughter of Thanos. While Nebula has always been a complex character with complicated motives no matter what version we're talking about, the Nebula of the comics had a much different role in the Infinity Saga than the one many are familiar with from the movies. In the original Infinity Gauntlet miniseries, Nebula was tortured by Thanos into becoming a half-dead, zombie-like creature, doomed to wander around Thanos' throne as punishment. However, when Thanos ascended to godhood and left his physical body after defeating much of the Marvel Universe's most powerful forces, Nebula found the strength to pull the gauntlet off of Thanos' arm and claim the power for herself. In her fury, she undid all of Thanos' actions, but nearly threatened to destroy the universe herself, before she was eventually defeated and had the gauntlet taken from her by Doctor Strange, Adam Warlock, and the Silver Surfer. Coming in at number 9, we have the Council of Reeds. While not commonly known as outright villains, the Council of Reeds have a complicated history with the Mr. Fantastic most commonly seen in Marvel Comics. A collection of Reed Richards from across the multiverse that have chosen to abandon their families and entire worlds behind in order to combine their intellect into one unified group, the Council of Reeds claim to do everything they do for the better of the multiverse, as their new home is in the expanse in between the different universes. All of this is possible due to the leaders of the Council of Reeds having taken the Infinity Gauntlets from their own realities and used them to create everything needed for their council to function. Incredibly smart but emotionally distant dudes with a trio of Infinity Gauntlets in their possession? What could possibly go wrong? Coming in at number 8, we have Magus, the arch enemy of Adam Warlock. Following the events of the original Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Adam Warlock separated his personality into a good and evil half, and in a twist that nobody could have seen coming, the evil half wound up getting out of control. Named Magus, this twisted version of Warlock used multiple cosmic cubes to launch a war against the Marvel Universe, creating evil doppelgangers to fight every superhero on the planet Earth. Magus eventually got his hands on the Infinity Gauntlet and was only able to be defeated after that point because Thanos had replaced the Soul Gem with a fake. Good job, Thanos. Totally makes up for all the other stuff you've done. Coming in at number 7, we have Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. In the alternate what-if reality of Earth 14154, Norman Osborn discovered the existence of the Infinity Gauntlet while serving as the leader of Hammer. Ordering several other villains to assassinate members of the Illuminati, Norman was able to assemble all of the Infinity Stones and granted himself the name of the Goblin King before attacking Asgard alongside his newly powered-up army of Dark Avengers. Standing victorious, the only thing left for Norman to do was, interestingly enough, try to work out his father issues, bringing his deceased dad forward in time to see all that he had accomplished. But when his father reacted with only horror at what Norman had done, Norman obliterated him from the timeline, unintentionally removing himself as well, because if there's one thing comic books love, it's weird, timey-wimey paradoxes. Coming in at number 6, we have the infamous Dr. Doom. On the alternate world of Earth 90-251, Victor Von Doom was able to hold on to the Beyonder's powers that he had briefly gained in the main Marvel universe during the Secret Wars crossover. With the strength of the Beyonder at his disposal, Doom was able to easily defeat an army of heroes assembled by Sue Storm, and was able to ascend to the level of godhood within this universe. Funnily enough, by the time he collected the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet, he no longer even needed their strength. He simply wore the gauntlet as a trophy, showing that the former most powerful objects in the universe were now just trinkets to him. Coming in at number 5, we have the Ultimate Hulk. Now, while I personally believe the Hulk deserves to be called a hero more often than not, the version of Bruce Banner from the Ultimate Universe does have a nasty habit of going completely out of control on a more regular basis than the usual Marvel Universe. While imprisoned by S.H.I.E.L.D., the Hulk was visited by the Ultimate version of Kang the Conqueror, who gifted the Hulk 2 different Infinity Gauntlets capable of wielding the 8 stones of the Ultimate Universe, but at the moment only possessing 5 of them. Using the gauntlets, the Hulk was able to break free from his prison and bring the fight to the rest of the Ultimates team, showing that maybe locking up the Hulk isn't the greatest idea in the world. Coming in at number 4, we're hopping over to DC with DARKSEID. That's right, the character that's often controversially compared to Thanos has actually wielded the Infinity Gauntlet himself during a particularly notable crossover. In the JLA/Avengers miniseries, important artifacts from both the Marvel and DC universe are spread throughout the multiverse and ordered to be collected by both the Avengers and the Justice League, with one of these artifacts, of course, being the Infinity Gauntlet. Unfortunately, its hiding place is on Darkseid's home of Apocalypse, and the evil ruler is already wearing the gauntlet. Luckily though, the Infinity Stones themselves wind up having no power in the DC universe, allowing the heroes an easier time in recovering the gauntlet, but the thought of Darkseid being allowed to take full control of the Infinity Stones is still an incredibly foreboding thought. Coming in at number 3, we have Ultron. In the Disney Plus series What If, Ultron is the final big bad of the first season, in an alternate universe where he's able to fulfill his plan of taking over Vision's body and uses the power of his single Infinity Stone to destroy this Earth's Avengers and cause a nuclear apocalypse. To make matters even worse, when this reality's Thanos arrives with the gauntlet and the other 5 Infinity Stones collected, Ultron is able to kill Thanos with ease and take the stones that he oh so kindly collected for him. This version of Ultron becomes so powerful that even the Watcher is forced to break his vow and form the Guardians of the Multiverse to stop him, as Ultron's ambitions have him beginning to conquer entire realities. Coming in at number 2, you know we can't have a list about the Infinity Gauntlet without giving Thanos a slot. And while the comic version of Thanos is obviously iconic and the main inspiration for all the various adaptations that would follow, my personal favorite version has to be the one from the MCU, portrayed by Josh Brolin. This version of Thanos isn't lusting after death, but rather has gotten it stuck in his head that the only possible way to save the universe is to wipe out half the life in it. Thanos is obviously one of the more powerful villains in the entire Marvel multiverse, but the most chilling thing about the MCU version is just how calm and resigned to his task he is, especially in Infinity War. This is a guy that just wants to commit his cosmic genocide because he feels he has to, and then go settle down on a farm. And finally, coming in at our top spot, the one character more villainous than Thanos is Santa Claus. No, I'm not being a Scrooge. I love Christmas, but the Marvel Universe has actually had it that Santa Claus was briefly one of the most powerful villains to ever wield the Infinity Gauntlet. Following the disappearance of his reindeer, Santa asks the Avengers if he can borrow the Infinity Gauntlet in order to deliver all of his toys in one night. Unfortunately, this winds up being a bit too much for Santa to handle, and he goes mad with power, only finally being able to be stopped by a well-aimed snowball from Namor. It's debatable on whether this holiday one-off was a canon adventure or not, but at least now we always know that Thanos and Santa Claus have something in common.
In at number 10, Ultimate Marvel. In the Ultimate Marvel universe, the Infinity Gems have a completely different narrative than the 616 universe. Now for starters, there's 2 Infinity Gauntlets, each equipping 3 stones. Rather than Thanos trying to get his big purple mitts on the gems, in this universe it's Kang the Conqueror who wants them, alongside with the Hulk, Reed Richards, aka the Maker in this universe, and Quicksilver, all of who come together and concoct a plan to steal the 2 Infinity Gauntlets. They managed to do it too, destroying the Triskelion in the process. There's also 8 gems instead of 6, one of which is found to be lodged inside of Tony Stark's head. The Maker forcibly operates on him, taking out the sentient tumor in his brain, which turns out to be the stone. Luckily, this universe's version of the Avengers, the Ultimates, are able to stop them, causing the gems to shatter and leaving the gauntlets useless. In at number 9, Marvel vs. Capcom. The Marvel vs. Capcom video games eventually integrated the stones into their franchise, and it provides a unique twist on how they're portrayed. While their powers are generally the same, the way in which they're used makes them a fun mechanic for players. For starters, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes, Thanos is the only one to make use of the stones, using power, reality, soul, and space for his supers. But then, in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the game incorporates the stones in a much more significant way. They grant your player character a specific enhancement based on which stone that you are using, all centered around the plot of Ultron and Sigma using the space and reality stones to merge their worlds into one.
and themselves. You need to use the remaining stones to defeat them. Up next, number 8, the Infinity Mitten. Of course, we had to include a what if alternate reality on this list, or rather, a what the, which was kind of a spin-off of sorts from the What If series and explored a more comical approach to the alternate realities and hypothetical questions in the Marvel Universe. It was a pretty short-lived series to say the least. Anywho, in issue 24 of What The from 1992 is a parody of the 1991 Infinity Gauntlet comic, the series that the MCU Infinity War film was loosely based off of. Here's a look at the cover. As you can see, the mitt reads, "Cosmic Cook," and Thanos holds a pair of tongs which hold up Wolverine, all while he declares that he is the master of space, time, and barbecue sauce. He's also called THERMOS in it, because all of the Marvel characters are silly parodies of themselves and have pun-filled names. The story still has the same narrative thread. THERMOS, aka Thanos, uses the mitt to impress Mistress Death, wiping out half the universe. Feel like it would be a little bit cozier than the Gauntlet. Or flexibility for your fingers, really. And at number 7, the BATTLEREALM stones. For those of you familiar with the mobile game Marvel's Contest of Champions, you know the whole premise of the game follows Marvel's heroes engaging in a cosmic fighting tournament. The game does have a loose narrative as well, which throughout gameplay, new Infinity Stones are introduced to players. They're called Evolution, Genesis, War, Chaos, Nightmare, and Death. The game doesn't give us a ton of context on them or what exactly their full scope of powers entail, or where they've been hiding in this alternate reality, but they still grab the attention of a certain mad titan who attempts to collect them and use them. And at 6, Ego. Let's move on to a specific alternate stone now. The Ego Gem. White in color, this one was hidden in a realm called the Ultraverse, and contained the essence of Nemesis, a being who was omnipotent and had shattered herself into the Infinity Gems, and spread them out across 2 universes, because she had grown tired of existence. The stone took control of Eternal Circe, and when she came across Loki, who was attempting to steal all of the other 6 stones, the stone recreated Nemesis. Now fun fact, Nemesis is sometimes believed to have been the Infinity Gems in humanoid sentient form. So all in all, Ego is a stone that contains the consciousness of Nemesis. And at 5, Rhythm. Rhythm is a bit more fun than our previous number. For starters, it's actually a fake gem. It appears in the video game Marvel Superhero Squad The Infinity Gauntlet, and was created by Loki. Thor and Falcon attempt to retrieve the stone from the trickster god, only to discover that it's fake, and has been used as a decoy to trick the Avengers in order to keep them away from the 6 real stones. Loki uses the stone to hide himself and the Enchantress inside of it. Now prior to this, the Avengers decided that they needed to acquire all of the gems before Thanos did, a conversation that Loki, along with Dr. Doom, Silver Surfer, and Nebula, listen in on. Moving on to number 4, the Build Gem. This gem is kind of similar to our last number. It also appears in a spin-off alternate reality, but this time one inhabited by LEGO Marvel superheroes. In 2017, a short was released online called LEGO Marvel Superheroes Guardians of the Galaxy: The Thanos Threat. The plot revolves around the Guardians needing to deliver an Infinity Gem called the Build Stone, which allows its user to build any weapon. They need to deliver it to the Avengers, but Yondu and his Ravagers get in the way, followed by Ronan the Accuser and Nebula. Essentially, it roughly plays the plot of the first Guardians MCU film, except turns the Power Stone into the Build Stone, which I guess is a little bit more fitting for its LEGO universe. Up next at 3, the Forever Glass. Deviating a little bit for this number from talking about individual stones and returning to a set of stones, or rather, something called the Forever Glass that appears on Earth 4290001, otherwise known as the Earth that's home to the Great Society. What's that? Well, they're a group of superhumans that banded together to fight off alien invaders. After the previous hero team of that Earth, the Archetypes of Justice, were defeated. Now, one of the ways that they defend the planet was by using something called the Wishing Cube, the equivalent to the Infinity Gauntlet in this universe. It has 6 planes of Forever Glass, which is the equivalent to the 6 stones. But their universe is ultimately destroyed thanks to Earth 616. Appearing in the 3rd volume of New Avengers, the reality is on a collision course with that of 616's, and Namor pulls the trigger on them, activating an antimatter injector to destroy them before they destroy the 616. And fun fact, on this alternate Earth, many of the characters are actually a pastiche of DC comic characters. Oh the lulz. And at 2, Death. Death is a much heftier stone in comparison to the likes of Build, Ego, and Rhythm. Well, maybe not Ego, but it's also known as the Mortal Stone. The Death Gem appears in the 2015 Infinity Gauntlet Limited series as part of the second Secret Wars crossover event. In it, the Reality Stone is used by Nova, aka Anwin Bakian, to create a new gem called the Death Stone, which Thanos manages to get his hands on. But here's the kicker. When Thanos touches it, it corrupts him with black matter, turning him to dust after he assembled it with the other gems in the Infinity Gauntlet. This went down in Infinity Gauntlet Volume 2, Issue 5. And finally, in at number 1, Continuity. Last but not least, we have the Continuity Stone. This one is owned by Deadpool and appears in his self-titled solo series. The Continuity Stone gives characters the power to talk to their comic book writers. Yeah. According to Deadpool himself, editors tremble before its limitless power to retcon Marvel Comics history with but a whim. So yeah, it's a bit more of a parody stone, and allows for more of Deadpool's wonderful meta dialogue and breaking of the fourth wall. But it's still an intriguing addition to the stones nonetheless. And at number 10, Tony Stark. The Volume 4 Avengers was post-Dark Reign. It was the heroic age, meant to return to form with classic superhero stories featuring the likes of familiar narratives, including the return of the Infinity Gauntlet and the Gems. The villain Parker Robbins, aka the Hood, sought out the Infinity Gems, and of course the Avengers rallied together to stop him. When the Gauntlet was taken away from him, it was by Tony Stark, who in turn completed the Gauntlet and became the first human to ever wield it. Tony then pretended to will it out of existence, but instead gave each member of the Illuminati one of the gems in order to protect them and keep them safe. Up next, number 9, Spider-Man. In the Avengers and the Infinity Gauntlet Volume 1, Issue 1 back in 2010, Thanos returns and has acquired all of the Infinity Gems. Alongside the Avengers, Spider-Man confronts him, but in contrast to all of the previous times when the Mad Titan had the upper hand on Parker and typically beat the character to a pulp, this time Peter steals the Gauntlet from him after it slides off of Thanos' hand while he fights a Doombot. Peter then uses it to rewrite the timeline, so that Thanos never got his hands on the Infinity Gems to begin with only Spider-Man retaining the memory of what happened. Up next at 8, Lockjaw. A different form of the Gauntlet in at this number. Lockjaw is a pretty underrated superhero, probably because he's a dog. Lockjaw, who initially served as the Inhumans' teleporter and escort to the royal family, eventually led the Pet Avengers. It was in that series that the character decides to pursue the Infinity Gems after Mr. Fantastic pays the Inhumans a visit, searching for the same thing. Lockjaw finds the Mind Gem, it boosts his intelligence, and he begins his quest, recruiting a few other furry friends, and reptile ones. They're successful too, until Thanos appears and kills one of their team, causing them to banish Thanos to an alternate dimension and revive their pal. Once all gems are assembled, Lockjaw wears them all in a collar rather than a gauntlet, and then presents them to Mr. Fantastic, who is pretty surprised that he did all of this. It's because Lockjaw is such a good boy. Up next at 7, Black Panther. Black Panther's stint with the Gauntlet took place in the 2015 Secret Wars. At the time, Dr. Doom had the Beyonders' powers and was practically a god, ruling over Battleworld. Black Panther is given the Gauntlet to battle the now practically omnipotent Doom. T'Challa loses though, but he served his purpose. He and the Gauntlet were essentially a distraction, and Doom went on to fight Reed Richards next. Up next, number 6, Ultimate Hulk. Swinging on over to the Marvel Ultimate Universe for this number. So in that universe, the Infinity Gauntlet is a bit different. Instead of being one gauntlet, there's actually 2, and there's 8 gems, not 6. The 8 are spread across the 2 gauntlets, and the Hulk got his grabbers on both of them in the Ultimates issue 25 back in 2011. During an ambush of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Kang the Conqueror, Hulk, who was imprisoned there, was let loose, and Bruce Banner's angrier half slipped on the gauntlets to take revenge for being locked up, which, if you think about it, could have been catastrophic, except that not all the gems were in the gauntlet, and the Ultimates managed to subdue him, thankfully. Up next at 5, Santa Claus. Yep, that's right, good old Saint Nick wore the Infinity Gauntlet once upon a time. This occurred in the Marvel Holiday Spectacular 2009, when the Illuminati let him borrow it in order to complete his Christmas Eve deliveries when his reindeer turned out to be Skrull imposters. The power gets to his head a little, leaving Doctor Strange exclaiming this wonderful line: "I told you letting Santa Claus use the Infinity Gauntlet was a bad idea." Oh, the hilarity. Namor then whips a snowball at the Christmas icon, knocking the gauntlet off of Santa's hand and into a snowbank. And then instead Iron Man sets him up with some robotic reindeer. Up next, number 4, Captain America. Prior to the 2015 Secret Wars story arc, under the Marvel Now label in the New Avengers, the Avengers had another crisis on their hands. An alternate Earth was colliding with Earth 616. The volume, written by Jonathan Hickman, more so focused on the Illuminati rather than the Avengers, but still contained a familiar cast of characters. After Black Panther discovers another Earth hanging over Wakanda, that is destroyed by Black Swan, Reed Richards looks into it and discovers that it's a multiversal chain reaction that is causing universes to collide with one another. Captain America donned the gauntlet to try to prevent it, but that didn't work. The power was so immense that it destroyed the gauntlet and the gems, minus the time gem, and left the Illuminati with no other choice but having to destroy the alternate Earth that was colliding into them. Cap was opposed, of course, so Doctor Strange casted a spell to erase his memory of the event. Up next, number 3, Reed Richards. In New Avengers Illuminati issue 2, it's revealed that Reed Richards has attempted to rebuild the gauntlet in order to use its power to then destroy it once and for all, but he was prevented by doing so due to the great temptation of its power. So he decided that it would be best to give each member of the Illuminati one of the gems in order to prevent the same thing from happening again. Later on, in Jonathan Hickman's run on Fantastic Four, Reed would discover that there was a multiversal council of Reeds, and that he was the only one who didn't possess the Infinity Gauntlet, which is pretty damn hilarious. In our number 2 spot, Deadpool. Perhaps the most surprising character on this list to get his wrist inside that gauntlet is Deadpool. This happens in Deadpool 45. At the time, in his solo series, there was a recurring gag where the character would be placed in various past eras of Marvel Comics, since the character and his stories can often be super meta. And at one point, one of the eras that he was popped into was during the initial 1992 Infinity Gauntlet miniseries. In the story, Thanos had hired Deadpool to steal the gauntlet, but instead Deadpool makes a fake one and gives it to Thanos, and uses the real one for his own comedic purposes. He gets all the heroes of the universe together to give him a roast. The story also features the Thanos copter, and Deadpool gets knocked out of it, so brownie points for bringing that one back. And last but not least, in at number 1, Adam Warlock. Out of all the heroes in the Marvel Universe, Adam Warlock is the one with the most experience when it comes to the Infinity Gauntlet. He initially obtained it in the miniseries of the same title, after Thanos' first attempt at taking over the entire universe was thwarted by him and pretty much all of the Marvel heroes and celestial entities. Warlock is the one who brings everybody together after the Silver Surfer warns him of Thanos' plans. He also manages to get it away from Nebula when she steals it from Thanos after he believes he's won the war. Eventually, Warlock, rather than maintain the gauntlet with all of its gems, decides alongside a tribunal of celestials that the gems should be dispersed. Warlock had a massive weight on his shoulders if he had chosen to keep it, and the Living Tribunal agrees, even though Eternity believes the power should belong to him.
Number 10. Nebula. If you're on top of the comic version of the Infinity stories, you'll know that Nebula was the one to get the gauntlet off of Thanos. After using the gauntlet to leave his body and become one with the universe, a near-death Nebula grabbed the gauntlet from his arm, taking away his power, and then tried to use it to take over the universe herself. Classy. Luckily, Adam Warlock wrecked her and locked her up. Good job, bud. Number 9. Norman Osborn. Yeah, this one's kind of a cheat because it's from a What If comic, but what the hell, canon or not, he wielded the gauntlet. In the one-off What If Infinity Dark Reign, we saw a version of events where Norman Osborn got his hands on the complete Infinity Gauntlet during Dark Reign, and he killed a bunch of dudes, and turned himself into the Goblin King, and forced Peter Parker to relive Gwen Stacy's death over and over again. Yeah. It was rough. But then he erased his dad from existence, which then erased him from existence, Back to the Future style, so that's good at least. Number 8. Thanos. That's right, Thanos. Did you just double check that this doesn't contradict the title? Me too, but this list is talking about all the supervillains who have wielded the Infinity Gauntlet, and Thanos certainly fits that criteria. Is this mainly because it was hard to fill a list? Yes it is, but it still counts, because he's used it a bunch in comics, shows, and yes, the Infinity War movie. And if we're talking Thanos, we must talk about the totally famous not at all tacked on, number 7, Thermos. Yeah, it's time for the joke entry. The Thanos of the Humorverse is named Thermos, and he looks ridiculous. But what's even more ridiculous is his version of the Infinity Gauntlet, which is called the Infinity Mitten. And it's really dumb, not just because the name sounds ridiculous, but also, who the hell calls a baseball mitt a mitten? Nobody, that's who. I don't even call it a mitt, I call it a glove, but whatever. And yes, I know that some people might get all technical and go, oh, but that's not the gauntlet, it's the mitten, yeah. But like, it's close enough, shush. Number 6, Dark Surfer. While the Surfer was a good guy through season 1 of the Superhero Squad, he eventually became corrupted by the Infinity Sword. He steals the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos and goes off becoming Dark Surfer. He then uses the gauntlet to split up into 6 different colored versions of himself to fight his 6 previous teammates, and he's eventually defeated. Which, while cool, was a pretty silly strategy considering how damn powerful the gauntlet could be. Number 5, DARKSEID. This is a great story. JLA Avengers was a crossover event that saw the Marvel and DC universes dueling against each other. This involved powerful items from each universe being hidden from the members of the other universe. And DARKSEID, who actually inspired the idea for Thanos, managed to get his hands on the Infinity Gauntlet. The only problem? The gems didn't work in the DC universe. Nerd. Number 4, Ultron. This one's definitely a stretch, but I think it kinda counts. In Avengers Assemble, the cartoon show, Thanos managed to get the gauntlet together, but was defeated. However, Ultron managed to take over the robot Arsenal's body, which had just absorbed the power of the stones and gauntlet. So here, Ultron wasn't necessarily wielding the gauntlet, he kinda became it. Which is pretty neat, but now I'm picturing Thanos shoving his hand up Ultron and it's not a pretty picture. Number 3, Ultimate Hulk. We all know that Hulk can be a bit unpredictable and violent at times, but the Hulk of the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, was way worse, and stronger, and great. Anyway, the Ultimate Universe actually had 8 Infinity Gems with 2 Infinity Gauntlets, and when Kang released Bruce Banner from his cell at S.H.I.E.L.D., Hulk ended up fighting against the Ultimates with the help of 2 freaking Infinity Gauntlets. Now thankfully they were missing some stones or else it would have been really bad, but he was still scary as hell. Number 2, the Magus. As you may know if you've been watching our stuff for a while, the Magus is the evil version of Adam Warlock, the powerful artificially created hero. Through a combination of powerful items like cosmic containment units, as well as brilliantly executed lies and deceits, he managed to get his hands on, or rather hand in, the gauntlet, which he managed to make functional again. He was defeated in the end by the surprisingly cohesive team of Adam Warlock and Thanos, who managed to summon a combination of Eternity and Infinity and took the Magus into the Soul Gem. Number 1, Dr. Doom. After Doom decided to help the Fantastic Four for the good of the universe and sacrificed himself to save the day, he woke up and found 2 Infinity Gauntlets from other universes, just begging to be taken, along with a bunch of Dooms who had been lobotomized. So he decided to make lemonade and create a Parliament of Doom, and later used one of the gauntlets to revitalize its home universe, and Doom became the god of it. Gnarly.